Welcome to the preview of Nakshatra techniques. I hope you heard my message. The sound was not working on the computer that I was all set up 15 minutes early on, so Saturn had other plans for me today, so I had to switch to my other computer. So give me an extra minute and I will get my slideshow up for you. Today we're going to have a kind of a preview of the upcoming class, and I just have to get the slideshow up here. Affy, I'm wondering, Affy is one of my students. I'm wondering if you could, while I'm getting this thing going, I'm wondering if you could share something about me and my classes.
Absolutely. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Oh, good. All right, the computer speaker is working. So about Barry, so I want to start out by saying Vedic astrology is a lot of information, a lot of detailed information. And so when you select a teacher or select a course, you got to select someone who has knowledge, extensive knowledge about the subject matter. And it's a subject matter expert. Barry's that. I've been taking courses with Barry continuously, nonstop for the past 6-7 years. And I got to tell you, I'm a very picky person. I'm very particular, and I've selected Barry because not only is he a subject matter expert, but he is very compassionate. He cares about his students. He communicates the subject clearly. He focuses on details. He also teaches kind of in a pseudo-Socratic method where he gets the students involved, looks at your chart, because most people learn really by looking at their own charts and how things apply to their own, and facts apply to their own charts. I can't tell you more about Barry except for the fact that he's been practicing Vedic astrology for decades. And he's a teacher that also doesn't hide the ball. I'm not saying other people are like that, but there are a lot of Vedic astrologers that tend to not share all the information or not share about themselves. Barry's not like that. Barry's very open, transparent, and he really wants the best. So earlier I told you that I've been studying under Barry since 2018 for 6-7 years now. I've learned a lot. In fact, when I do practice and I do other people's charts for predictions or other things, people are amazed at how accurate I am. Now, I'm not, trying to, toot my own horn. What I'm trying to say is that that's all on Barry and, other teachers that I've had. But, I stand on his shoulder and his subject and information and techniques that I've learned from Barry that helps me be able to predict the way I do. So you're in a sense lucky to have found Barry, because I found Barry just stumbling upon another video, and that's how I found Barry. And I'm so blessed to have known him. Thank you so much, Barry. I'm excited for this course.
Thanks, Graffy. I'm all set up. I was set up a half hour early, and then I realized the computer sound didn't work, and you probably could hear me, but I wouldn't be able to hear any questions. So I had to quickly transfer everything to my other computer, and so I apologize for the late start. So welcome to our overview of Nakshatra techniques. Again, I'm Barry Rosen. I've been teaching Vedic astrology classes. I even call them boutique classes. I've taught beginning astrology a couple times, but I teach kind of more advanced things, dashas and nakshatras and sexy classes like Secrets of the Sun and the Moon. And I like like being very creative in my coursework. And I've been practicing Vedic astrology since 1988, and I've had many teachers. What we're going to do today is have an actual first class. What happens is, when you go to college, there's a first class, and they kind of give you kind of an overview of what you're going to do, and sometimes it seems boring, but actually we'll learn a bunch of new things today. So it's actually the first real class for the people who've registered, and the actual course will start in 2 weeks on February 3rd with the second lesson. So this is lesson 1. My other slideshow, I did not get to transfer, so I'm going to wing it, but with some introduction material. The best email address to contact me at the moment is my other business address, support@fortunecast.com. That's my financial business. I can also be reached at my office here at this number. That's in Iowa. The extension to reach my staff is 5,000. Most of you know me from Facebook, on Astro Yoga and Barry Rosen and things like that. The class, again, will start on February the 3rd. We'll go through April the 20th, and there'll be a spring break. I'm going to Florida that week, so we'll be having a spring break for everybody on March 23rd. The cost of the course is $395. If you need installment payment, you can talk to me. And if you're at the live lecture, I will offer a special discount coupon for you by email. Okay. So the purpose of this class is to provide an overview lesson that will provide seeds for the upcoming classes. And again, we'll be starting probably classes will be held on Saturday at 11:30. Classes are always recorded. People always ask me that question because sometimes people have dates and gatherings and things to go through, but the classes are always recorded. If you miss it, you can watch the replay. And those are usually sent out within 24 hours. I also send the PowerPoints ahead of time. I usually start with some Vedic chanting. So I'm going to do that now, and then we'll begin. Om Ganeshaya Namaha, Om Ganeshaya Namaha, Om Ganeshaya Namaha, Om Ganapatiye Namaha, Om Ganapatiye Namaha, Om Ganapatiye Namaha, Vakritunda Mahakaya, Suryakoti Samaprapa, Nirvigam Kudame Deva, Sarvakareshi Sarvada, Sahana Bhavatu, Sahano Bunatu, Sahaviryam, Karvavahai, Tejasvina Vatitamastu, Ma Vivishai Om Shanti Shanti Shanti, Om Aditaye Samaye Mangulai Buddhaye Cha, Kurusha Krishna Vischara Havekitave Namaha. Om Asatoma Sadgamaya, Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya, Richoma Amritam Gamaya, Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Okay, good. So we've got the gods on our side now. So many of you have probably taken Nakshatra classes before. This is a Nakshatra technique class. So those of you who like to use, everybody's fascinated by nakshatras because of the deities and the psychology and the personality impacts. We've covered a lot of that in our other 2 nakshatra classes, which are available, to watch at your own leisure. I've been offering one of them free online through my newsletter. This is a kind of an advanced nakshatra class because it's about nakshatra techniques, how to time things with nakshatras. And most of I don't know anybody who teaches this material. I've been wanting to do it for a couple of years. And again, all of you know nakshatras. There's 27 nakshatras in the constellation, and they're about 13 degrees and 20 minutes. Naksha is a Sanskrit word, and tra means to preserve. Naksha means getting closer. Tra means to preserve. The 2 are staying together. This means one that never decays. It refers to the fixed stars of the zodiac, like Orion and Arcturus, that we know from the English language. Again, a lot of these stars are we know the English names for them are Taurus and Orion and things like that. And they're all very kind of fascinating. Nakshatras have the most influence on the mind because the moon transits through one constellation every day, and so they impact our daily struggles in peace and calmness. And they also create kind of a complex mental matrix, which we've studied in our first class. Sometimes you've got this nakshatra is connected to that nakshatra is connected to that nakshatra, you know, and it creates this kind of complex energy for the mind. It's quite fascinating to study, but we're going to actually, this class is focusing a little bit more on practicality. For those of you who don't know the English names for nakshatras, they're here. I find it interesting to remember them because when I'm talking to clients, they don't know what Kritika is or Rohini, and so if I say the Pleiades or Aldebaran or Orion, they know those constellations, and so it's good to know the English names. I've got them all here in the PowerPoint for you. Hydra for Ashlesha, Regulus for Mugga, Spica for Chitra, Swati for Arcturus, which is an easy one to remember, and some of the other ones are harder to remember. And I don't always remember them either, but they're kind of fun. So the course is divided into 3 or 4 sections, and for those of you who have studied with me, sometimes I add things, or I usually don't take things out if I promise to teach them, but once in a while I will add a whole new section or something, or add a couple extra days because we need to fully flesh out what's going on. So first part of the course is on Navatara, which is predicting through counting from the birth moon. And again, we'll talk about all of these in more specific information in a minute. And there's special nakshatras that when the market goes through them, they have an impact. For example, Sadi Sat has its biggest impact when it transits through the 25th nakshatra from your moon, which is called the Mananus nakshatra, connected to the mind. And Saturn going through the mind star tends to create a lot of fear and anxiety and desire for change, and creates a lot of upheaval. But there are a lot of other special stars that are worth looking at, like the 22nd nakshatra, which is the star of annihilation. And when planets go through there, sometimes things really kind of can break down. So I've taught Navatara, or sometimes also called Tarabala, before. We'll do it more deeply in this class. And I'm not even sure I'm going to start with it, but we're definitely going to have at least 3 weeks on it and go into more advanced information with it. Part 2 of the class is on nakshatra yogas and Muhurta. Now, Muhurta isn't taught very much, and it's so important. I've taught it once, and it really needs a 16-week class. But I think it's important to understand how to use nakshatras to pick auspicious days to start. And one of the key points about Muhurta is that you want the combination of the lunar day, which are called the Tithi, the day of the week, which is called Vara, and the nakshatra to have a good combination. And the computers are now starting to kind of generate these kind of what are called nakshatra yogas, and they're very hidden. I've been using them in timing the financial markets lately, and when we get these difficult nakshatra combinations, I find the market is down a lot. You wouldn't normally see it. So they're very important, and I do find when I have particularly challenging days or something, you're getting one of these difficult combinations. We get a lot of auspicious combinations all the time too. So we'll learn those, and then we'll learn some basics of Muhurta so that you can put that together. Now, one of the fascinating things about the class, which I haven't taught before, is the connection between dashas and nakshatras. Now, we know there are nakshatra-based, a lot of dashas, Vimshotri dasha is a nakshatra-based dasha. If the moon is in Jeshta, where my moon is, when you're born, then you begin your dasha and your sequence in a Mercury dasha. And most people understand that, but there are all these kind of advanced and hidden things going on with dashas and nakshatras. Sanjay Roth recently has been done a series of talks, and I've incorporated it. If the moon is in the second, sixth, third, 11th, or 8th or 12th houses, which is half of the houses, then we have to start the dasha sequence from a different place. And suddenly that makes the dashas work better. I mean, you talk to a lot of people and they say, oh, my astrology doesn't work. They may not be using the correct dashas. And I've been getting incredible results studying this for 3 years now and using with all my clients, using the correct calculations of the dashas. Now, we can use Vimshottri dasha for health and longevity, and it's the king of dashas, and it does work to some degree, but it's a lot easier using these other forms of the nakshatras, and I'll talk to you about that also in a minute. And the other thing is there's some other advanced work with dashas and nakshatras, is that depending on where your moon is, the sequence of your dashas will be different and have a different quality and may invoke different houses than you're thinking about. So, for example, there may be a difference. There's 3 Venus-related nakshatras, Bharani, Purva Falguni, and Purvashada. And depending on where your moon is, your Venus period may be dominated by Bharani, or it may be dominated by Purvashada, or may be dominated by Purva Falguni, and it will have a different quality. And then when we look at the houses from those nakshatras, we also find that they bring in different stuff that you wouldn't normally predict. So dashas and nakshatras, probably a whole course. I want to add 3 or 4 lessons on some of these advanced ways to use nakshatras. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. So yeah, this is we'll talk more about that in a minute. But so here's here are the alternate Vimshottri dashas. So there's actually 5 Vimshottri dashas that you can use. There's the one that most people use and know, but then if your moon is in the 2nd or the 6th house, they call it Keshma, or Shema is actually the pronunciation in Sanskrit, Shema Vimshottri dasha. And instead of normally, if you were born with moon in Jeshta like I was, you would be born into a Mercury period. I have moon in the 1st house, so regular Vimshottri dasha works for me. But if you have moon in Jeshta and in the 2nd or the 6th house, let's say you're Libra rising in Jeshta Nakshatra, then we should be using Shema Vimshottri dasha, which means that instead of beginning your life in a Mercury period, you would begin it 4 nakshatras away in an Uttarashada period, in a sun period. So it suddenly kind of changes your whole timeline. And for people that have been working with this, it's just an eye opener, because it just suddenly helps predict things a whole lot better. Again, if you have your moon in trines or kendras, 1st, 4th, 7th, 10th, or 5th and 9th houses, then regular Vimshottri works. So it works well for half of the people. And it's the king of dashas because we can use it for health and longevity always. But for predicting career and relationship and all these other things, we need the correct calculation. Moon in the 3rd or the 11th house, the Vedas say that we should start the beginning dasha of our life 5 nakshatras from the moon. This is called Uttama Vimshottri dasha. And if you have moon in the 8th or the 12th house, then you start your dasha sequence 8 nakshatras from the moon's nakshatra. And that really kind of shifts your sequence quite a bit. So we'll be studying this. I'm hoping to teach an advanced dasha class in the fall, and we'll spend even more time on it. But I want to start introducing it because it's kind of life-changing information. I also want to look at some of the other nakshatra-based dashas. I think there's about 12 of them. They have different ways of calculating too. And Yogini dasha is really wonderful for predicting health. Narayana dasha is very good for kind of predicting what's going on in your life right now. And they have their getting those calculations right sometimes is tricky also. Programs don't always calculate them right, but we'll help you with that. We have another section on the course on Ayurvedic astrology and nakshatras also, and how certain nakshatras, and when you have malefics in them, may create certain disease tendencies. And we'll also look at the four career nakshatras and caste, look at the 4th and the 10th nakshatras, which are often connected to career and caste, and give us some clues about that. For example, my ascendant is Anuradha Nakshatra at 4 degrees Scorpio, and Anuradha is connected to the servant class. Yeah, because I'm not a servant. I've actually, I'm a teacher. I've been a university professor. I'm a counselor. It's very clearly I'm a Brahmin or in the teacher class. But my psychology is always oriented towards serving. Serving my students, serving my clients. So the nakshatra brings mental energy. The caste nature of the nakshatra brings mental energy, and so we'll see how to use that properly in the class. There's I have a 3-week section on the course, which is kind of unique. There are all these kind of oddball rules for predictions using nakshatras. And the Saptarishi people have developed this material quite a bit. Some of it comes from Bhrigu astrology also. And it's quite accurate, and it's kind of fun to learn. We probably will only do 18 nakshatras worth of it, because again, it could be a whole 15-week class, but I'm just going to give you a sample of it. For example, if Ashwini is afflicted by a malefic, or the ruler is afflicted, so Ketu is very afflicted, or if you have a planet in Ashwini, at the right time, maybe a Ketu period, or another planet connected to the planet in Ketu's nakshatra, there may be a vehicle accident if there's some other factors going on that indicate that. This also may create a person who is perpetually late for catching buses, trains, and planes, or appointments. It's even thought that it's said that if Ashwini is afflicted, then the planets connected to Ketu, the Lord of Ashwini, may not be able to reach a place on time or miss buses and trains. So Marilyn Monroe got fired by Fox because she is chronically late to her show. And notice how Marilyn Monroe has Venus in the 10th house of career in Ashwini Nakshatra, and is afflicted by a retrograde exalted Saturn in the 4th house. So she's got Saturn opposing and aspecting Venus in Ashwini Nakshatra. And she, we'd have to look up the dasha, but she got fired by Fox because she was always late for appointments in her shootings, and they finally said enough was enough. We can't hold up 50 people waiting for you to make it on time. So it's kind of interesting. There are all these kind of these funny rules with these nakshatras. Another oddball. There's about 92 predictive techniques for the first 18 nakshatras. We'll look at some of the more significant ones. And they're funny rules. Like if you have Sun, Moon, or the ascendant in Kritika, you'll have a significant event happening in your 27th year. If you have Pluto or Neptune in Rohini, which is in Taurus, it will lead to death of the native or death-like experiences either between the ages of 38 and 50 or 60 and 75. Nehru died at age 75, and he's got, I believe he has Neptune in Rohini. I couldn't find his chart the last minute. Other Ashwini techniques, if you have a planet in Ashwini and it's aspected by another planet, it will create a desire for self-improvement. You think about this a little bit. Ketu kind of likes to beat itself up. You're not good enough. Whenever you have like Ketu in the first, it creates low self-esteem. Ketu not being good enough is kind of, the planet aspecting Ketu may show you how you want to improve. So Saturn aspecting Ashwini may create a desire for selflessness and discipline, which is a good thing. Mars aspecting Ashwini asks for control of ego and control of jealousy. Moon aspecting Ashwini requires us to be more compassionate and tranquil. Venus aspecting Ashwini tells us to stay away from overindulgence. So there's more to this, but I just wanted to show you this. Here's Muhammad Ali. He's got Mars and Ashwini. It's debilitated in the Navamsha chart, but he's still a great, incredible fighter because he had the self-discipline to, Mars and Ashwini and Ketu's Nakshatra. He had incredible discipline to develop, and master the Mars energy in his life in the 10th house of career in Aries. Other funny Ashwini rules. If the Lord of the 5th or the 7th is in Ashwini Nakshatra, then when you travel, you may tend to have an affair. So you don't want to marry a man who's got that combination. In general, Mars and Ashwini can lead to traveling to different places in search of property, or Sun and Ashwini means your father may travel. So there's kind of this traveling energy with Ashwini. Here's an interesting case with Martin Luther King. When he traveled, which he did extensively, he was documented as having many extramarital affairs. Again, he was a clergy member and a priest, but again, that was one of his weaknesses. This is documented in a book called Bearing the Cross by David Garrow. And notice he has 12th Lord Jupiter in the 1st house in Ashwini. And again, 12th house, here's Martin Luther King's chart. Very, very great man. Jupiter in the 1st doesn't make him a priest, but one of the things I never really had thought about was it's Lord of the 12th and the 1st. And the 12th house is connected to affairs and adulterous affairs and sexual activity and secret sex and things like that. And so it's in Ashwini Nakshatra, which happens when you're traveling, you have adulterous affairs connected to the 12th house. So just kind of fascinating. In Jaimini astrology, we also have Venus aspecting Jupiter. So it's kind of irresistible. Again, 7th Lord Venus is a sexual house as an aspect to Jupiter here also. Kind of interesting. Great man. I always laud him, but this is kind of a fascinating Ashwini thing I found out. Okay, I think here's Marilyn Monroe again. Other oddball techniques, if we study the mythology of Pusha Nakshatra, it involves Mercury being born of the moon. It's the half-child or the stepchild. And one of the prominent themes for people with Pusha Nakshatra is they may end up adopting stepchildren. This is the case with Madonna and Angelina Jolie. Here's Angelina Jolie's chart. Cancer rising, moon in the 9th. Notice how her ascendant is at 5 degrees, which is the exact exaltation degree of Jupiter, Pusha Nakshatra. Venus is at 4 degrees, making her, a stunningly beautiful woman. And the A5, for those of you who know Harudas, which actually represents children. It's actually the physical manifestation of children. The 5th house can be romance, it can be, entertainment. There's a lot of things we can say about the 5th house. It also can be children, but the A5 is specifically children, and her A5 is also in Pusha Nakshatra. So we've got this triple Pusha Nakshatra, and then she had all those adopted children, and very famous for that. The person has Venus or Mars in Australasia, they may have sexual imbalance or perversions. Michael Jackson has Venus in Australasia. We'll look at that in a minute. Marilyn Monroe also was a sex, for the 50s, she was an incredible sex figure, and a lot of wives really didn't like the fact that their husbands were oogling over her, because it wasn't kind of cool in those days. She was but she has her ascendance is Australasia, and Michael Jackson also has Venus in Australasia. Now, Michael Jackson's quite a fascinating chart with the pedophile issues. Notice how he has Jupiter conjunct Rahu for obsession with children. So that to me is kind of fascinating. It's aspecting his ascendant. And Venus is considered very weak in the 6th house. It's considered Marna Karkastana. We don't like to see Venus in the 6th house. It's the worst house placement for it. And it's in Oscillation Nakshatra. And it's aspected by Mars in a Parashara aspect within about 5 degrees, creating kind of a strong sexual, passionate energy. But it's creating the sexual perversion in the 6th house of addiction. We have a whole tape on our YouTube channel on Venus in the 6th house and addiction. So it's got the addiction, the sex addiction, and again, it's oscillaceous, so it's sexual. It was perverse, obviously, with this life. And again, great man, for musical legend, but obviously a troubled life. So that's another. We have 3 weeks on these kind of oddball rules about timing nakshatras, and they're quite fascinating, as you could tell by this little overview. We're also going to spend some time on Tarabala and Avatara. So usually we count the nakshatra from your birth moon and the ascendant, and the transits and dashas connected to those numerical relationships cause problems or give boons. So there's a lot of hidden information in Tarabala. I don't know how many of you have studied this. It is taught quite a bit. But the first 9 nakshatras from your birth moon, which is probably the most important thing to count from, and you can count from your ascendant, are the most key for timing things. So when you have planets and dashas connected to those nakshatras, they really have a lot of weight. We call them first tier, and the ones that are the most problems usually are 3, 5, and 7. 3 is danger to finances, 5 enemies and obstacles, 7 is transformation and destruction of the old. But sometimes even the Jamna Nakshatra, depending on the ascendant, there's some advanced rules, can cause problems. I have one of those advanced rules where the Jamna Nakshatra is connected to the 8th house Lord Mercury, and it then really kind of transits through Mercury nakshatras, and Mercury dashas are particularly vulnerable for health and things like that. There are a lot of advanced things that we can do with this, with transits, with dashas, and we'll be playing with some of that. There are also these kind of special nakshatras that we'll have a couple lessons on. The Mananus nakshatra, which is the 25th nakshatra, is the seat of the mind, and the planet owning that nakshatra, the planets in that nakshatra have the most influence on our mind. Most of our minds are monkey minds. Some people, have Jupiter in the Mananus nakshatra, and they have a steady, happy mind if it's a good malefic or Jupiter owned nakshatra. And some people, I have a Rahu owns Swati owns my 25th nakshatra. I have a real crazy mind. But a lot of mental illness can be studied from the Mananus nakshatra. We also have the Karma nakshatra and its connection to career, which is the 10th nakshatra. And the other interesting one is Vinasha, which sometimes is pronounced with a K, but I'll take the K out, which is the 22nd nakshatra. It means destruction or annihilation. So if you went into a dasha that was in the 22nd nakshatra from your moon, it might be a rather devastating period, and we could study that and see that. Here's a list of all the special nakshatras. The ones that are most studied, we'll look at again, are the Jamna nakshatra, which is connected to health, the Jati nakshatra, which is often connected to mother, but also to caste. I'm sorry, this isn't mother. Jati nakshatra is connected to caste. Matru nakshatra is the 8th nakshatra, is connected to mother. Karma nakshatra is often connected to career. Some Gatika nakshatra is connected to groups usually, and our relationship with groups. And the Mananas nakshatra we've talked about. The one that's not up here that we will go over is the one that's connected to annihilation, but they're kind of interesting. But there are other ones that are kind of interesting. And there's a long, I mean, we could have a whole course on these special nakshatras, and I'm hoping to spend at least 2 lessons to get a little bit more depth than we normally have time for in our nakshatra class. Some Gitika, the 16th is connected to marriage. Vinashaka is the 22nd one, is the one that either it's the positive way of looking at it is that if the material is destroyed and we're forced to kind of look at the spiritual, do we come into spiritual realization and find God? So it could be a very kind of life transforming spiritual experience also with that nakshatra. Okay. Now, we also want to spend some time with Tithi and Nakshatra yogas, which is a vast subject. The computer programs are starting to be able to kind of predict these. I've recently gone to a number of advanced lectures on these, and they're quite fascinating. And I'll tell you a little bit about them. They're very important in Muhurta, because the most important thing when you're doing a Muhurta is, well, you have to pick the right nakshatra, but you have to have the Tithi nakshatra and the lord of the day, which is called Vara, to be a good combination. And there are a lot of good combinations. And sometimes the combinations even root out all the other problems in the chart if you get a good combination. So we'll learn some basic rules of Muhurta. Again, it's a 16-week class in itself. But then we'll also talk about some of these yogas, nakshatra yogas, and one of the most common one, which is called the Siddha yoga. These are just showing the combinations of the lunar day with the days of the week, but then they also can be combined with the nakshatras. So it's quite fascinating. So for example, Sri Jyoti Star version 10 now is in the Panchanga is daily showing you these yogas. And I think they're also important because they're hidden information in somebody's birth chart. I mean, if you're born with a really difficult yoga in the chart, you may have a more difficult life because it is a huge thing. There's also a book by Sylvia Mihaljevic called Journey with the Moon, which is on Tithis and nakshatras, and she finally created a table which I use every day, where you can look up what day of the week it is, what's the lunar day of the week, and what the nakshatra is, and you can see a lot. Sometimes they're neutral. Sometimes you get these nice combinations like Siddha for accomplishment, and it kind of overrides and makes things great. So for example, this is a partial list. So you got, if it's a Sunday and the moon's in Uttara Phalguni, Hasta Mula, Uttarashadha, Shravana, or Revati, it creates a Siddha yoga. If it's a Tuesday and the moon's in Ashwini or Uttara Phalguni or Revati, that's a Siddha yoga. If it's a Wednesday, if the moon's in Kritika or nakshatras 11, 12, 17, 20, or 25. But you see, this is kind of, in the past, I mean, I had studied this material years ago in Muhurta, but it was so hard to calculate it. And now the computers are calculating, and there's a good book with a table for calculating. And it's very fascinating information because I was just telling you, I started using it in my daily stock market analysis. And on days, when we get these very difficult yogas, I find the stock market is almost always down. This is Amrita. This is another combination that's good. But so we have all these inauspicious ones called, one of the common ones is called Dagda, means getting burned. So if it's a Sunday and the moon's in Bharani, then that creates a Dagda day. If it's a Monday and the moon's in Chitra, Uttarashadha, that creates a Dagda day. So those kind of interesting combinations. And it's good to be aware of them because they do have a nice influence. And when I teach Muhurta for your daily life, I say, if there's a tornado warning out, don't plan a picnic. And sometimes you can see these really inauspicious days with these combinations, and then you just say, well, not a good day for a job interview, or not a good day to get married, or not a good day to start my 2-week vacation. So those are kind of quite fascinating, and there are all these. There's a number of them, and I'll give you a handout on them. But I think it's important to be aware of, and they're not taught of. These are some of the more difficult ones, and we'll look at their combinations. Dagda yogis for burnt combinations, Visha meaning poisonous, Hustana fire that consumes, Krakakacha, it's kind of a saw, Samvartika, which is the worst one, it's dissolution. I've been watching these now for 2 years now, and I'm kind of amazed what happens on those days in the world, in the stock market, in my life. And we don't get these really inauspicious combinations that often. Maybe there's a couple times a month, but nice to know what they are and when to look out for them. These are kind of, again, there are all these rules around them. Once you learn how to do it, you can quickly look them up. Like I said, I am hoping to teach a couple to make. I don't want that material to be boring, so I'm going to. There's a lot of rules about Muhurta and Nakshatras, and then these Nakshatra yogas. So this is some of the material. We'll try to give it a context and make it practical. The applied and applied Vedic astrology is about making life practical, so that's why I named my company that way. Raman, years ago, used to tell us what nakshatras to use to do important things. If you're founding a city or planting a tree or picking the president of a company, you want a fixed nakshatra like Rohini or Uttarashadha, Uttarabhadra. The soft nakshatras, Chitra, Anuradha, Mrigashirsa, and Revati are nice for conceiving a child or starting a fine arts class. But they're it's nice to be aware of these because the nakshatras have different qualities to them. There's the sharp nakshatras like Mula, Jeshta, Ardra, and Ashlesha, the difficult ones. You use them for casting spells, or starting wars. You don't really want to use them to start a company, that kind of thing. So it's nice to be aware of the nature of these nakshatras. Bharani, Muga, Purvashada, and Purvabhadrapada are actually kind of nefarious nakshatras. Purvabhadrapada, they always have a lighter nature if if the planet's well placed and stuff like that, but they're pretty dark stars sometimes. The most auspicious star, of course, is Pusha Nakshatra. It neutralizes all evil. It's ruled by Saturn, but it's actually, the deity is Brihaspati, so the deity is always more important than the ruling planet, and it's just a perfect day to start anything. Okay. We'll learn all these rules of judging planets and things like that. Again, the nakshatra ruler has to have, if the nakshatra is going to be strong, the ruler has to be unafflicted and well placed. So if you're using Pusha Nakshatra and Saturn's in Aries and it's in the 12th house or something, or it's just got a difficult energy to it, it's just not going to be as auspicious. I always want to see if the nakshatra ruler has other dignity. Is it the Atmakaraka? Is it a yogi planet? Is the Lagna ruler? So kind of advanced rules for that. Sometimes the nakshatra ruler is involved in special yogas, like Raj yogas, and then that nakshatra becomes very powerful. The ruler of the Lagna nakshatra is always good, like the first lord, and it gives status. So we always kind of can count on that one. When we're judging nakshatras for use in a lot of the things that we're doing, We usually, the moon's nakshatra is always the most important one because, you know, the nature of nakshatras is always connected to the moon and the lunar mansions. And what pada, there's 4 padas in each nakshatra, what pada can make a difference. We have a whole class on that, but not in this course, but we've done a class on padas, and it's quite fascinating. So the second thing we can always look at in judging a nakshatra is the second most important thing besides the moon's nakshatra is the ascendant's nakshatra and what pada it's in. And that will tell us a lot about purpose in life too, I think, a life purpose. I use that quite a bit. The Atmakarika's nakshatra and pada is always key. Now, you've been to my classes and watched my videotapes on Atmakarika. The Atmakarika isn't always a picnic. It's not. It's the Lord of the 1st and the 8th, and it gives us our most difficult lessons. And I may add some material on Atmakarika and deities and life purpose, because the Atmakarika, its nakshatra and the mythology of that nakshatra will tell you about your own journey. We did this a little bit in the last course. Tiger Woods, there's a strong connection, I think. I don't know if his moon is in Jyeshta nakshatra, and one of the challenges of the mythology in Jyeshta nakshatra is adultery, you know, Scorpio. And, you know, the mythology tells us about Indra, who couldn't stay away from another deity's wife and was cursed and had 1,000 vaginas put on him, and, you know, had to do all this penance to get rid of it. But the whole mythology of that is, you know, is don't be adulterous. And here we had Tiger Woods at the peak of his, I think he has moon in Jyeshta, the peak of his career, has an adulterous affair, crashes his car on the way home in a Venus period, in a Sun Venus period, which is the end of his auspicious Sun dasha, which brought him great fame. And suddenly, you know, he goes down the toilet. His sponsors drop him, his golf game drops. He goes from being the world's top golfer to, you know, crawling into a hole, you know, dealing with divorces and all kinds of losses. And, you know, you can see that in the chart. He's a Leo rising. Sorry, I didn't pull that chart up. Leo rising, moon owns the 12th. Moon period was just devastating for him. And the moon period was connected to Jyeshta nakshatra, I believe. We also have to analyze the dasha lord's nakshatra, and we have a whole 2 or 3 lessons. Because most dashas are we have nakshatra-based dashas and we have rashi-based dashas. And the rashi-based dashas, like chara dasha, are better for predicting the material world. The nakshatra-based dashas are about our emotions and our mind and how we feel. And so we have to, you know, look at that more closely and studying. Studying the dasha lord's nakshatra tells us a lot about how we're going to feel in a particular dasha period. Of course, transits of the moon and the key planets through the Navatara is very important to do in this kind of work. Okay, nakshatras and body parts. So we have a section on Ayurvedic astrology and nakshatras, and this isn't taught very much. For those of you who are interested in Ayurvedic astrology, this is from our medical astrology class that we taught a couple years ago. We have Prakriti, which is, you know, the Vata element connected to air, the Pitta element created to fire, and the Kapha element related to earth and water. And then we see which nakshatras are connected here in the Prakriti. Then we have kind of rare material on how different nakshatras connected to different body parts. Now, in medical astrology, we, you know, Aries is head and first house is head and Taurus is face and second house is face, that kind of thing. So we have that, but in the nakshatras, we also have this whole scheme of body parts, and it's not logical. There's a way to learn it, but Kritika is head, Rohini is forehead, Rishirsa is brows, Ardra is eyes, and so Purnabasu is nose, Pushya is face. So you can sometimes, if you have malefics in these nakshatras and they own difficult houses or something like that, and they're very afflicted, then you may have certain health issues connected, affecting these body parts. So that's a whole game in itself, but we'll do a little bit with that in one lesson of the class. Kind of quite fascinating. And I'll give you some techniques for remembering how to remember the sequence. So the trick is start with Kritika, which is the head, and then the face goes through Magha Nakshatra, and then Leo Nakshatra into Hasta is connected to hands and fingers, and Tritra through Anurad is connected to neck, chest, and breast. I have a whole diagram on it. I have to Xerox it and put it in here, but Abhijit's the brain, Jeshta and Ruler are the right and the left sides, and Purvashada is the back. Interesting. So it's very interesting. When people have back problems, it's often they have relationship problems, and here we have Venus and Purvashada connected to back. There's just no accidents. Ravana is genitals, Janishta is anus, Shadabhishak and Purvasu are thighs. So there's a way to learn and remember this, but it's quite fascinating. And we don't like malefic transits through the nakshatras, and that can be Saturn, Rahu, Ketu, Mars could activate a problem. Many of these kind of difficult transits may be more problematic in a difficult dasha or in old age. So there's a lot of things to learn always. Remedies, we always have remedies for body problems. Okay. I don't know. I'm hoping, I don't know if we'll have time. Many of you have studied Suann McKean and has really kind of documented how different body part, how the deity is the most important part of the nakshatra. So the ruler means something. We can use it for influence of the dasha and the houses that it's going to be connected to. But the deities are the most fascinating thing about nakshatra, and their mythology is and how that relates to modern psychology is quite wonderful. I mean, Jeff Poole, a good friend of mine who passed away in October, did a wonderful course on mythology, psychology, and consciousness. There's 9 lessons on it. I put it all on YouTube, and it was we were highlighting one lesson in my newsletter every week. And you should all study that material. It's just so wonderful. I mean, it's just so fascinating. And I think it's just good to study that even while we're learning techniques, because there's only so much we can do in 12 weeks. It's kind of a quick way to learn the nakshatra groupings. There's a numerology to it. 1, 10, 19. You just keep adding 9 to the first nakshatra, and first nakshatra is connected to Ketu. So there's a nice way to learn all of these. It's kind of interesting. Talked about caste. I talked about that already. Okay. I may have gone through all my material already. There's a lot of, I do have a class, probably in the Muhurta section on a thing called Pada Nakshatra, and this is, it's connecting the day of the week to the nakshatra, and then it tells us a lot about ability to predict. Nakshatras are just kind of quite a huge realm in themselves, and it's quite amazing. I really just wanted to give you an overview of the class. and I want to open up if you're interested in taking the class, if you need a payment plan, you can email me at support@fortucast.com. And the class is $395. Sometimes I do put out discount coupons and early bird registration. I'm hoping to do that for people who attended today. These classes take an enormous amount of my time to put together. It's my biggest love in life is teaching Vedic astrology, and I do them because I'm just passionate about it. I don't make a lot of money from it, and some of my teachers charge $1,800 and $1,000 and things like that. So my classes are very cheap, and if they don't work in your budget, your credit cards are max, we can always do payment programs. So, but I would love to have you in my class, which starts in 2 weeks. Website, again, I had more on the other slideshow, but put up on my website, technology.com, and then click on webinars or click on courses and live webinars, and you'll see the Nakshatra class. Okay. So I want to open up. I did a lot of talking. Sometimes I go an hour, and most of my classes are 2 hours. I really should keep them down to an hour and a half. I'd just like to open up the floor for questions, and let me see if I can manage this. So I'm going to mute you all, and that there's, if you go under your name, there'll be an orange mic, and you need to turn it green in order to take the mic. You can also write something in the chat box. I often sometimes have trouble managing that. Maybe Affy can help me. So questions about anything that I've covered, questions about the course. I don't like to take questions about your specific charts because I don't know them, and I need to keep everything in context. So I do appreciate not getting questions like that. I will look at your chart always in the class. That's one of the bonuses. Affy, while we're waiting for questions, okay, so Tahia has a question. Let me unmute you. Let's see. Okay, so I've unmuted you to here. So if you can find that orange mic and click on it, it'll turn green and you could ask your question. Okay, you got it green.
Oh.
Good.
Can you hear me, Barry?
Yes.
I was just writing, actually, Mark. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. This has been really informative. I've always found, your stuff super granular, which I really like, and you make it so it's very understandable. So thank you for doing that. My kind of core interest is with the Tarabala, and I have a lot of your old stuff that I still read. So that's what drew me to this, was just the whole Tarabara, the Tara tables, and reading through the nakshatras and kind of correlating it to the dasas. So I'm super psyched to hear more about that. But really, this was not really a question. It was just to say thank you for sharing what you know.
Okay, good. It's so great to have you back in class again too. So I'm glad you can make it live today. I mean, no one can go anywhere in this weather unless you're in Florida. Where do you live again? You're in?
I'm actually in Los Angeles.
Okay, so you got nice weather. You're good.
Yeah, we're okay most of the time.
I was in my house for 9 days with 24 inches of snow and minus 48 wind chill. So they let me out of jail. Let me out of jail finally.
Well, thank you, Barry. Appreciate the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Other questions, comments? Joy, do you want to share anything about your experience with my classes? I'd love to. I miss you. It was great that you came today.
Right. I've taken a couple of classes with you. They were absolutely sensational. I really enjoyed your classes. I came in totally green with just a Western knowledge of astrology, and really it was an eye opener. I've enjoyed a lot of your classes. I haven't taken them in a while since my mom died. I've just haven't been focused, but I would definitely like to get back. This class has a lot of really interesting, and that's the one thing about your lessons. In every lesson, there's always one or two really kind of juicy pieces of info that you could take away and really, really use. So, there's a lot of people who give lessons and it's all very technical and it's all very, but a really juicy, like if it's the 25th nakshatra, if it's the 10th nakshatra, if it's fixing days to nakshatra. I mean, these are things that you can actually sink your teeth into and use. And basically, I think in astrology, that's the most important thing. It's really nice to have a theoretical knowledge of everything, but that juice is just delicious. That's what you want, and that's what I get from you when I'm really focused and can do it. So
Great.
I'm definitely joining this course. Definitely.
Oh, great, Joy. I'm so glad to have you back. I know you've
Thank
been
you.
through quite a haul with
Yeah.
everything in your life
Yeah.
lately. But
Yeah, yeah.
it,
And
it
now
has,
I'll make it back. I just hope I don't have to go into shelters in the middle of your lessons, so it's
oh,
okay.
yeah,
Okay.
no, you'll be okay. I think
Okay,
Israel.
thanks.
Joy's in Israel. Um, okay. Anybody else have a question or want to share anything? Kathy, do you want to say anything else? There's some people who came late after you gave the
As an
introduction.
example, Barry, as an example of your class, for listeners out there. And by the way, hi, Joy. Welcome back. We missed you. So, as an example, when Rahu was in Ardra, it really created havoc. Is there talking about special nakshatras, is there a special nakshatra connected to Revati because Rahu is in Revati? Or is there a special nakshatra connected to Shadavisha because Saturn is in there right now?
Yeah, again, it's the wonderful thing about um, there are kind of mundane influences. So we know Ardra is one of the more difficult nakshatras because it's connected to Rahu and it's connected to Rudra, which is kind of the fierce aspect of Shiva that destroys things and creates tears, which then we go into Purnavasu and we can enjoy the rains and be beyond the tears. But so sometimes they're just now Revati is considered the most sattvic nakshatra. It's a triple sattvic nakshatra, so it's the most auspicious nakshatra, and sattvic in the sense that it's ruled by the god Pushan, who wants to take us either to the underworld or to deep space and meditation or to enlightenment. So it's considered the most auspicious nakshatra. So there are general things. Now, in terms of your own chart, where is Revati from your natal moon? And so that learning the subtle rules about predicting for each individual, versus general things that we can do for the cosmos, are are different. And so like with Muhurta, we're kind of looking at what's going on in the world because you know, because on this day, the moon and the day of the week and the nakshatra are combining in either an auspicious way or a very inauspicious way. And it can give us a lot of useful information. So Muhurta is kind of more, they're kind of general things that we can learn from nakshatras, for everybody, but specifically your own specific Tarabala, the count from your moon, and how the Sadabishak, we've got Saturn in there. Saturn and Rahu always create more anxiety. So there's some general things we can always say. Saturn and Saturn is, good for technology and good for biotech. Aquarius is a very scientific, technological sign of the zodiac, and Saturn is particularly. And so, is our in mundane astrology, our biotech stocks and technology stocks going to kind of go down as they're peaking with the third push through of the transit of Saturn. For my mundane work, I would say that would be the case, but then it's that market isn't over just yet. It still has some room to go higher. But anyway, again, trying to deal with your specific chart versus the world's chart. I mean, we can always look at both with nakshatras, but they're different approaches. We'll do some of each in the course. Okay, good question.
Thanks.
I have one question for you.
Okay, somebody else has a question. I need Yearly, I need you to speak up. Your mic's not coming through. I can barely hear you. Can you speak up?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Not very well. You're gonna have to probably be really loud, or you're gonna have to find your mic and like really, I don't know why. If you have a headset with a mic on it, you can plug in.
Now, like this?
That's better. That's better.
Yeah, you mentioned something about like you identify different dashas, like depends on the moon location.
Right.
Is it any way, in which program you can do that, like specify that calculation when Vimshottari will be calculated differently? And which traditional text you're referring to when you mentioned that?
Yeah, so Sri Jyoti Star 9 and 10 do that calculation. Jagannatha Hora, which is a freeware, which is a really good program. I don't find it user friendly, but it will allow you to calculate those alternate dashas on that program. Some of the other programs don't. There are ways to, I learned how to calculate dashas by hand. You can always calculate stuff by hand too. We can, show you some quick, techniques for that. The second part of your question, tell me, I have a spaced out.
Which traditional books you referring to? Hora Shastra, Jaimini Sutras?
Yeah, this isn't a Jaimini technique. This is the Jata Brati Jata. I mean the Jata. Somehow I'm having trouble with pronunciation. It's the it referenced it in my article. It is a Vedic astrology text. It's an ancient one. It's the Jati Prati Jata, I think it's called. Is that?
I see. Got it.
Yeah. In that book, it tells you about using the alternative dasha calculations, and then Sanjay Roth has a number, and Visti Larson have put a number of videotapes up on YouTube talking about this. And I first started using it about 3 years ago, and it was just quite earth-shattering because suddenly it was much able to predict accurate information using Vargas and dashas if you use the correct calculation. You can always kind of twist and get the answers in Vimshottari dasha, but they're hard. It's hard sometimes. Traditional Vimshottari dasha is always used for longevity calculations and for health calculations, and for everybody. So people ask me about health. I don't use these special dashas, but I had a client who had moon in the 8th house, and everybody told him his business was going to do well because he was in the Mercury period, and Mercury is exalted in the 3rd house, and he was going to do really well. And I ran he was the dasha correctly, which was Adna Vimshottari dasha, and he was in a Saturn Ketu period. And I said, well, probably you know, everything is falling apart. I mean, the signature of Saturn K2, it's a very spiritual energy, is it tends to make everything fall apart in one's life. And lo and behold, you know, his whole business had fallen apart in Saturn K2, and he was, you know, having some challenges. So that was the difference between using, you know, telling a person he was going to have a good business career because he has an exalted Mercury, and that, you know, he better run for cover because he's in a Saturn K2 period, you know. So this is the value of these alternate dashas, and I've been using them every day now for 3 years, and I love the results I get.
And may you please share it, that is it YouTube channel where you share that lessons regarding what is it, connection with
Misty Larson. I'll see if I can yeah, look up I don't know the name of the tape. I mean, I can't look that up that quickly. But this, look up Misty Larson on YouTube and look for his tapes on dashas, and I believe you'll find he has a half-hour one and an hour and a half one on that. And he introduces this. There's a fourth one that I didn't even talk about, which is connected to the Atmakarika, but I will share that one with you. That one you have to really calculate, you know, creatively. Part of the problem, you know, now that we have all these computer programs, everything is so much easier. You know? But you have to have the computer program. But luckily, Jagannath Ahura is free. Okay. Anyway, thank you for your question.
Thank you.
Barry, I think also Sanjay Roth on YouTube has videos called Vimshotri Dasha types.
Yes, that sometimes he's not as understandable as his student, but yeah, he's the master of it, and that's where the stuff came from. I'll put that in chat. You know, I'm going to go through that material because understanding why these calculations work better is kind of useful sometimes. You know, I'm trying to put this in chat, but so it's types of dasha. It's from Vimshotri Dasha.
It's on YouTube. It's on Sanjay Roth's channel. It's called Vimshotri Dasha Types.
Okay.
And he goes, I think, through the different one, Keshma, Adna,
Right.
Upana.
It turns out the K is silent, so it's called Shema. Vimshotri Dasha. Yeah, yeah. I you know, who knows Sanskrit? I mean, it's this Shema, Adna, and Uttama, but those are Sanskrit names, yeah. But anyway, all that stuff is quite fascinating. Other questions? Okay. So we can end early. I only wanted to do an hour and a half. So again, I'll send you a follow-up letter. I invite you all to, you know, take the course with me and let me know if you have any special needs around it. It will start in 2 weeks with lesson 2. Originally, I was going to start with Tarabala. I still may do that, but I'm kind of excited to start with some other things that I've been working on. So a lot of this is new material for me, so it takes me a lot of time to put these lessons together. So it's exciting. Okay.
Barry, I'm sorry, I have last question. Like, may you please share how do you look like on the market, you know, like stock market? Is it anything you can share in that direction?
You know, I have a 42 lesson class on it. It's kind of I have a class called Personal Finance and Vedic Astrology Part 2, and I have a general lesson about the stock market in there. It's a 2-hour lesson, but it's very hard to, you know, like I said, I have a course where I teach mundane astrology and its application to markets, and it's 42 lessons. It's just, you know, I'm a master at that. I'm actually bored with it, and I wouldn't say I'm bored with it, but I don't like people think they can study astrology to get rich quick and then the life will be, wonderful. And Vedic astrology was always meant to help people with spirituality and remedies for health and problems. And we can use it. The ancient texts even tell us, when sun goes into Leo, gold will go up, and that works. That's in the Brihat Samhita even. But also predicts when to buy conch shells. So we have to adapt to modern times with these ancient texts. But I probably, if you look on YouTube, I probably have a general lesson on financial astrology. I know I have 1 or 2 tapes on financial astrology on YouTube where I talk about the general principles. So you can again, they're 20, 30, 40-minute tapes, and it's quite a science. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, final Jeopardy answer. So I'll end with a closing prayer. Om Asatoma Sadgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Richoma Amritam Gamaya Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Okay, so please email me if you have any questions, if you'd like to take the course and you have any special needs, and I'll look forward to seeing hopefully many of you in 2 weeks. Have a great rest of your Saturday.